Hello, I'm Simon Calder. I'm very excited to be back on MCN6. Viewers may recognize me as the host of Back to the City Minneapolis Music Conversation, but today, before bringing Back to the City back, I have in my presence Samuel Robertson, and we're going to talk about a great book. The book is the Holy Bible containing the Old Testament, translated out of the original tongues and with the former translations diligently compared and revised, with illustrations by Samuel Robertson and preparations for printing by 1111 Press in the year of 2022. How would someone who wants to get a hold of this physical book go about doing so?
Yeah, you have to pre-order it at 1111press.com/Old Testament. The book gets printed and comes out in June of 2022. Then it'll get shipped to your house.
I've also been working on a book recently, and there's a lot of overlap, I think, between the content of that book, which emerges from the Back to the City show, and it's essentially about harnessing creativity. There's a lot of overlap between the contents of that book called Her Hummingbird Heart, which will be out in November, and many of the things that you were saying in a recent interview. In your interview with mplsart.com, you highlighted that you wanted to undertake a large, flexible illustration project that you could evolve with and learn from. Could you say a little bit more about how you selected the Old Testament?
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about the Old Testament, but I knew that it's broken into so many different books, so that I wouldn't have to get locked into a style. I could I had a sense of how big it would end up being, and then just I had to know that it would be fresh the whole time, that I'd want to keep working on it.
You highlighted in that past interview that you have a sense of the Old Testament being the book that has most shaped humanity.
Yeah, I had a sense of that for sure.
And then you also highlighted what type of impact it had had on you with your first experience of it at Roman Catholic grade school and so on. Mm-hmm. And in a word, not very much impact at that early stage in your life.
Yeah.
Something that I find really interesting about the project is that you wanted, quoting you again, you wanted to approach it like a lost, ageless, estranged child. So you're kind of maintaining your personal kind of lack of experience of this book, which you're very aware has had a massive impact on human history. Could you say a little bit more about that intention to maintain this lost, ageless, estranged child component?
Yeah, I guess it feels like part of the society that we're living in is geared towards keeping us ignorant of history to some extent, and part of that is what I put into it, my whole schooling. I didn't really care to learn too much about history. It just seemed just not important to me. But I think in part it was just how it was presented. I don't feel like my schooling at all was geared towards making a critical thinker or a civic-minded personality out of the students. I feel like any of that had to emerge from outside of the school system. But again, I know people do emerge with tons of drive to make things better and to connect with people, and but I just feel I did not escape with any sort of I didn't really get any of that. I kind of gravitated more towards creative outlets and sculpture and painting and writing and music, but it sort of I felt like an orphan to history, and having this book be such a colossal influence on everyone in some way or another, even if it's just the motion of society that has embraced this book on some level. Yeah, it definitely has. It's like within our core, within our bones. I wanted to explore what that would be, having no memory of the book or anything that has been so formative, and just to like lean into that and like, yeah.
As you were creating the paintings, and of course, and discovering the stories, of course, there's the theme of exile is quite prominent. So, and that relates to this theme of estrangement. Given that estrangement and exile are relevant themes in the Old Testament and also aspects of the human condition, were there any moments when you were kind of particularly able to harness this lost, ageless, estranged child kind of persona in a way that kind of fit with all of that?
A lot of the characters are sort of carry themselves in like an aloof sort of way, where they're like more into like sensation of like, I guess, food or yeah, just experiences and stuff. So I guess like, because yeah, it was like after I finished the book, I kind of put words to it about like the estranged child. Like I didn't have I didn't necessarily, I had like a feeling of it, but like I did it without like too much thought before it, and then tried to make sense of it afterwards, of like what this like, of like why I didn't want to research it, the book or the history or anything. So yeah, in that sense, like I put like the characters are like, a lot of them have like elements of like self-portraiture, just like not my likeness or anything, but just like activities and just behaviors that like are like within me, you know.
Are there any paintings that come to mind in particular in that way?
Like one of them, Isaiah 2:19. There's like a oil derrick drilling and like natural gas fires in the background, and there's like a coal miner type of guy doing the splits in front of it. And he's got these blue shorts on with like a very faintly you can see like a handprint on the blue shorts. That's semi-autobiographical. Not that I ever worked in a coal mine, but I canoed with some friends down the Missouri River. The first part of it was like a 60-day trip, and we like canoed by the light of the natural gas fires that like were in these booming fracking towns, you know. And, like I forget the exact, I think it was Montana or something, but yeah. And then the specific shorts are like the ones that I was like wearing, and like we had to patch our canoe because it got a hole in it early on, and like we had to use like charcoal that we found to thicken up the epoxy, and like my hands were all covered in coal and stuff, which I wiped on my pants, and they're just like short shorts, and then they just remained, that stain remained on them the whole time. So there's like some more directly autobiographical pieces like that.
You referred in the previous interview to bringing yourself into the conversation between this text and humans.
Yeah.
Yourself as you are, weaving yourself into that conversation. It makes me think of the story, like the New Testament story of the prodigal son, and this sense of kind of being outside of something. And then once you're immersed in the process of creating these paintings for this project, perhaps you have this sensation of belonging more, or finding yourself at home more.
Yeah.
Could you, which is why, because that's of course what happens to the prodigal son. He's been rolling around in the pig muck, and he thinks he's so ashamed of what he's done that he doesn't think that he'll be accepted back. And then the fatted calf is cooked to him, and he's and he belongs.
Yeah.
And he's welcomed.
Yeah.
Does any of that resonate with your process of finding yourself at home in this text?
I feel like I belong in the text now on some level. Not in any like normal sense. But yeah, I do feel definitely closer with the text, having spent so long with it. Yeah.
Something that really struck me as interesting was that you said with many of the paintings, perhaps with all of them, it was just a case of showing up for them, putting the time in, and then they made themselves.
Yeah, definitely. That I experienced that a lot. Like I had to get into a mindset, and like think over the passage, and just like kind of like flip through source material and just see like be open to the spark hitting and like take notes of like what it could be.
Yeah.
What it could, I could see like this painting becoming, and then just kind of like jumping in like. I never did like sketches in a separate. There's a piece of paper, a sketch on there, and paint it. Just like try to jump right in, and then just let the passage and my experience and what was interesting at the moment kind of direct me.
Yeah.
A lot of times based in humor was like sort of like a just like the guide a lot of times to explore these deeper things, but I'm just like gravitate more towards things I think is funny if I'm going to be painting something.
In terms of the function of the humor, again, something that you highlighted before is that you use this metaphor of there being a little crust of humor, and that it served the purpose of making the story accessible through letting guards down, having people let their guards down. Could you expand just a little bit more on the role that humor's playing? Because it doesn't seem like you're poking fun at anyone. Right. I really, at no point in the book do I get that impression. The humor seems to be enabling something to happen, enabling some kind of encounter to happen. Is that right? And can you expand a bit more?
Yeah, I'll try. I feel like, a lot of times, like, the humor could... some of them are for, like, violent depiction. I don't, like, portray very much violence at all in the book. Like, there's, like, a couple sacrifices of, like, goats or whatever, but most of it is just, like, I will use like something else in the surrounding text, like with God, like declaring that he's gonna kill like a ton of people and stuff because of their wrongdoings. I'll sort of come at that from like a different angle where it's not like a direct interpretation, like word for word verbatim about what's happening, but like maybe in this moment God's like talking about other things, and then those can be like what show what's going on in his demands and his orders, but then for like the painting sometimes like doesn't seem like it has anything to do with it until you like really read it closely. Then so like you wouldn't look at it and be like, this is like a violent thing that's going on, but then like when you're looking at the passage, it will start to make sense, and it's like just like it expands. I feel like the passage and the painting both expand like to deeper meanings.
Is there a specific painting that you could use as an example of that?
I think Ezekiel, either 25:6 or 32:8. One of them is like the God character is like dressed like kind of the rest of them, but he's like the one that the focus is obviously on. And they're all like gathered around the bed of a pickup truck. It's like a really damning passage where these guys all like went astray, and he's gonna bring them all down, you know. But then like it was like because they were like partying and stuff. So then I like was thinking like what food. And how do I depict that there's like a party going on? And it's like the group of people is around them, and then there's like a party sub the entire length of the pickup truck. That's a party food. I like got away without depicting any actual violence, but then like, when you read the passage, then it starts to make sense. Like that's one example. There's a ton of those because there's like a lot of violent passages, and then to try to. I don't like painting violence per se. So kind of is a way to come at it from underneath or something, or above or like whatever.
You made a reference to the pickup truck in that particular painting. And as the viewers can see from the various paintings that we've been showing, there's lots of cowboy hats, lots of microphones showing up. You made references in the previous interview to the consumerist culture that we're kind of born into, and you wanted to kind of nod to that. Could you expand a little bit more on some of these features, like the cowboy hats, the microphone, any of these other recurring motifs, construction workers?
Yeah, I guess like, I don't know, when I settle on a motif, like it has to feel like there's like, even if I can't put my finger on it, like I don't think I need to even, but there's just like a, something like below it that is like exemplifies like a like an aspect of culture, or is like kind of symbolic of humanity on some level. So like with the cowboy hats and stuff, it was like just like kind of like a country western feel to the that was just in the first 3 books. I think I only used like the cowboy hat like maybe one time after the first 3 books, but it was just like the kind of theme that generated the initial pieces for the work. But then, I guess like each of these like recurring symbols have just some sort of like ripe expression. Some other recurring themes were like plungers and eggs and like the microphone.
Why the microphone?
I feel like there's like so much dialogue between God and the people, and then it's just like sort of a modern approachable like conversation symbol maybe, like just broadcasting your words with it, I suppose.
It's, a lot of the paintings match up with passages that are self-referential regarding images. So, for example, at the very beginning of Genesis, so God created man in his own image. And then at the beginning of Exodus, for they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto me. I just think that particular passage from the beginning of Exodus is so pertinent to the project. Let's visit some of my favorite paintings. Okay. One of the very few slightly violent ones, but comically violent, is, I think it's Genesis 32:24. There's a reference to wrestling. Wrestling with a man until the break of day. And then, of course, we have 2 wrestlers. And I'm kind of like zooming in on that one on the back of you highlighting not wanting to depict violence.
Yeah.
Could you expand a little bit more on that desire of yours? Because obviously there is a lot of violence in the Old Testament. So that seems like a very intentional choice.
I don't often like want to depict people getting hurt and killed and stuff. It's just like what I brought into the project. That's like who I am. I don't particularly enjoy that. A lot of it isn't direct interpretations. It's just like a feeling. Like the project is like way more feeling based.
Yeah, the project really is feeling based. Are you familiar with Ignatius Loyola? Okay, so Ignatius Loyola developed a process of Bible contemplation, and the way in which you've described the role of feeling in your process and the emergence of these pieces, it fits so much with Ignatius Loyola's method of engaging with the Bible.
I have to check it out.
Where and it's primarily, he developed it primarily for the New Testament.
Okay.
And at the beginning of the process, you select a passage where there's interaction between Jesus and other characters. And the idea is to engage with those passages, bringing in all the senses. And you were referring, there's a lot of food in the paintings. You refer to the senses, you refer to feeling. And so, yeah, there's a whole spiritual practice that was developed by Ignatius Loyola to feel into these moments and really live these moments and use the senses to bring it alive.
Cool.
And it was all geared towards being heart-centered, getting the heart involved. The reason why I bring all of that up is I wonder whether the practice over 7 years of creating these paintings to honor these narratives. Could you expand a bit more on the transformation that you went through?
Sure.
Through applying this process, which begins just as a commitment to completing this project.
Yeah.
Could you expand a bit more on the practice? It seems almost like a spiritual practice.
Yeah, in some ways it definitely felt like that. I guess like the paintings started out like more crude and more directly related to the text more often, I guess, maybe. And yeah, I feel like deeper soul searching and stuff was like going on throughout the endeavor.
You became a father. You took on a new profession.
Yeah, doing mostly tile work, like so it's remodeling and tiling people's houses, kitchens, bathrooms, that kind of thing. So yeah, and then just like the project was kind of like grounding and like it was like a purpose to continue to come back to, because like I was liking what was being generated from it, so it was never pushed me away from the project, because like I could feel like the growth in terms of like what I was able to capture in a painting. So I guess, they started up like, they got like more complex as it went, and I kind of pulled on different themes, and I guess I don't really know how to vocalize what the transformations have been, but just kind of like a sense of like more respect and admiration for like the world and its inhabitants, kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, even though I like cared before, I was like in my early 20s and like maybe more apathetic to things, and like I feel like I came out on the other side with like a much different outlook and sense of urgency and like I guess a more round understanding of what like the problems that our society faces are, I guess. But whether or not that's like because of the Bible itself or whatever, or that like that undertaking, or just because time passed, it's kind of hard to like figure out what that is. But
Time passed, whilst in the meantime you remain committed to this practice.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, through remaining committed to that practice, it seems like you became more compassionate.
I'd say so.
Yeah, more heart-centered.
Definitely. Yeah.
Which is, that's why I brought up Ignatius Loyola.
That's
Because it's
awesome,
interesting to think that you are contemplating these passages from Scripture, and especially as you find the art emerging in maybe the subconscious mind is more involved as you get deeper into the project. Could you give an example of a painting where that was more at play, where the painting that emerged isn't one that you would have planned out, but there seemed to be something very right about the painting that emerged.
Yeah, some of them in like a lot of like the discovery within creating a painting, like it would happen at different times where like it wouldn't feel complete, and then like right towards the end it would be like, well, this is what makes the painting, like up at the buzzer kind of. And I guess a couple that come to mind is like a painting from Haggai where like a guy is coming out of the water and in his skirt is like a bunch of different types of meat. And he's like coming into like there's like the fishermen, two like elderly fishermen like sitting on buckets, and then like the painting was almost done and like I had the fishing line just going into the water. Was like, and then I was like, well, should I make the fishing pole like bending like he's catching something? And then the guy that was holding all the meat in his skirt was holding a fish in his skirt too, so I just put the line going to that fish's mouth. Like the guy, as long as he's coming into the shore with like a bunch of different kinds of meat in his skirt, and like he might as well be like helping the fisherman out, just like carrying the fish in too.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like one. Yeah, there's like a bunch like that where like right at the end like got like a little extra chance to kind of play with the scene. But
yeah, it fits together in this way that you couldn't have planned.
Yeah.
So in the forthcoming Back to the City book that comes out in November, it's called Her Hummingbird Heart, and it's about harnessing creativity.
Cool.
And there's a lot of focus on The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which influenced the songwriter Sarah Morris that particular Back to the City book is about. Are you familiar with The Artist's Way?
I am not. I should check it out though.
Do you know Julia Cameron? So it's a 12-week course, and the subtitle to The Artist's Way is A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity. And for Julia Cameron, creative living and spirituality kind of go together. It's increasingly difficult for her, she says, to sort of separate the two.
Cool.
And she talks about moments like the one that you were just describing, where suddenly this thing that you couldn't have planned for happens, and it feels like, you discover these treats.
Yeah.
By kind of like surrendering a bit to the process. And she says that the word God is used in The Artist's Way, but people who are skeptical of the term can treat it as an acronym for good, orderly direction or flow.
Cool.
So we have these moments
That's
of being
awesome.
in the flow, and then it feels like the universe is responsive.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's quite a famous course and book on the creative process, and I write quite a lot about it in my forthcoming book. But
That's awesome.
The way in which God is talked about in The Artist's Way, good, orderly direction or flow, does that resonate with your experience of the process and the practice you're describing?
For sure, yeah, that definitely resonates, and I like the good orderly direction acronym too. That's it feels like when you're in the flow, it just like you can just catch on to things that. That's kind of why I would jump into paintings like before they were fully hashed out, to like allow that in, Like I haven't been a big sketcher in a long time. Like I don't do much planning or sketching, so like I feel like getting colors down or getting like there's like a million ways to like loosen up to like let that flow in by just like giving it a little bit here and there, and then just like seeing what sticks. And then like the way I painted, it wasn't like watercolor. I was using latex house paint, so I could always paint over something that didn't work, which like lends well to not sketching too much, because you can always change it, and you can also water it down like watercolor, so you can get a lot. It felt very versatile.
Yeah.
To allow for that flow.
The medium kind of allows for the emergence of something.
Yeah.
And again, that's another focus of Julia Cameron's. And,
Cool.
Yeah,
Sounds really good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good book.
And it fits with your experience.
Yeah.
Did you experience that more with this particular project for whatever reason?
Well, just because like the scope of work was so large, so it like happened more because of spending so much time with it, maybe on some level, but also I think, it did allow for that to flow, like in really good ways, I think. So I think it definitely has to do with the subject matter and the material,
Yeah.
for sure.